Welcome back into the thick of things for Breakfast Extra. Mazino, Bill and Judith TB here for you. Now, it's being described as one of the most ambitious overhauls of Nigeria's tax systems in years. President Bola Tinubu has signed a series of tax reform bills into law targeted at improving fiscal transparency, boosting government revenues, and reducing duplication among tax agencies. Now, under the new laws, key rates like VAT remain at 7.5% and company income tax stays at 30%, but the real change lies in how the system is structured, streamlining tax collections and enforcing compliance while also attempting to ease the burden for small businesses and digital platforms.
And it comes at a time when Nigeria is grappling with sluggish growth, high inflation, and widespread public distrust in the government's ability to manage funds. So, what do these reforms really mean for Nigerians and for the economy at large? Well, joining us now is Timi Ikidi. He is a respected economist and fiscal policy expert, and he helps us to sort of make sense of it all. Mr. Timi, it's good to have you join us today, and a very good morning to you. Happy Sunday.
Well, thank you. Good morning to you guys. For doing an amazing work, and I'm glad to be here.
All right, let's begin with the big picture, shall we? What's the overall goal of these tax reforms? And do you think that they are the right move for Nigeria, especially at this time?
So I agree. It is obvious that all of us, including me seated here, we are actually facing a tough economic times, no doubt about that. But irrespective of that, we need to make progress, we need to move, and I think that is why the Tax Reform Act has been designed, and hopefully the potential benefits are expected to be enjoyed by Nigeria. But we also need to understand something, that for every reform or every policy, people need to understand that there's a time for, there's a lag period. So the policy has been enacted. You don't expect the benefits to just, it's not a magic wand. So the benefits are not expected to just start trickling in. So there's a lag period, and, there are different, time horizons for those benefits to start hitting the different target zones or the different sectors of the economy. Basically, I know Nigerians are actually asking questions, especially the low and medium income group. They was hit in the current economic situation, so they will be asking, like, what's in for us? Because the fact is, the economy is not friendly for them, and so they will be asking what is in for them. So quickly, there's an aspect of this bill that caught my attention, and I want to commend the team that designed the policy for their ingenuity, and that has to do with formalizing the micro, small, and medium scale enterprises. So basically, what that means is this bill, this act, actually makes a provision for micro, small, and medium scale enterprises to be exempted from certain tax categories. For instance, companies or businesses with a turnover of not more than 100 million naira and asset value of about 250 million naira are expected not to pay company income tax, the capital gains tax, as well as the newly introduced 4% development levy. So the expectation is that this would encourage the growth of micro, small, and medium scale enterprises, which are actually the engine of growth for every economy. If you look at globally, you go to Asia. Basically, these are the segments of the economy that actually drives growth. So if more, there's potentially this happens, what it means is that it will create more employment, and what that means is that it will create more incomes for the poor and the low income groups. So in principle, I think this idea is very germane. So the policy is quite inclusive. But my fear would be, I want to believe it will be implemented, to the latter and effectively. If done, obviously we're going to have, some challenges here and there. But if this aspect is properly well managed and there's a boom in terms of the growth of this industry, then we expect that there will be increase in income, there will be increase in, a lot of people will be taken out of the poverty gap, because once you generate more employment, what happens to your GDP? Your GDP improves. What happens to government revenues? Government revenues also improves. What happens to livelihoods? People, income levels will increase. At some
Dr. Timi, let's talk about that.
Discover that even the inflationary pressure will tend to even out.
Let's talk about that now, Dr. Timi, regarding...
That is one aspect.
Okay, so I wanted to pick on something, jump on something that you have just talked about regarding livelihoods and the lives of Nigerians. Let's talk about where it actually gets to them, where it meets people out there on the streets trying to edge a living. VAT. Now, under this new reform, we shouldn't see much VAT again on basic food items. In fact, not at all. Basic food items, baby products, school fees, electricity, hospital bills, groceries from local supermarkets should have no VAT. School fees, we wouldn't see any of that. But how immediate will this take effect, and what impact would it have on the lives of Nigerians? Because for people who earn about 30,000 naira and who cut their coat according to their size, they really don't identify with these taxes that they pay. So is that enough for the common man to say that the president has done something that actually tangibly affects my pocket?
Okay, thank you. So that has been the concern for the average person. They want to see immediate benefits. But the reality is that, like I mentioned earlier, there's always a time lag between when a policy is enacted and implemented, and when that the benefit tends to trickle into the economy. So basically, with respect to the question you asked, we should be looking at the medium term. But mind you, I would want to advise, is my recommendation, that the additional revenues that would actually come from this process should be effectively and efficiently invested in critical infrastructure in the economy. So because obviously the low and medium income groups will be worse hit if there's any inflationary pressures beyond what we're actually facing now. So government should put in place like buffers. For instance, the average man or the average person on the street would want to commute from point A to point B. If for instance, he can't even do that currently, and there's an additional spike in that rate, how do you compensate him? How do you tell him what you're doing is for his own benefit? So government has a duty to protect, low-income group as a result of this policy enactment. The policy in itself, I would say that it is germane. I think I would commend the government of the day, but implementation should be closely watched. I think if the right investment, especially in the right infrastructure, like I mentioned, transportation, electricity, other essentials, are actually, managed properly, then the initial impact on the low-income groups will be minimal. So by the time you get to the medium term, obviously, and the long term, I think everybody would see and that would see the intention or the intent of this very bold step by the federal government. So that is my view to that. However, we should keep in mind that because for me, policies are meant to alleviate this group of citizens.
Dr. Timi, I mean, you just talked about policies being able to alleviate the pains and the hardship when it comes to the average Nigerian. And critics have argued that the reforms do lead to address overtaxation at the subnational level. Now, I want to make this clear, right? Everyone is paying tax some way, one form or the other. Like you rightfully put, transparency is one of the biggest issues that we have. Do we have an overtaxation problem, or is just, the reforms that we're not seeing? Because the Kurupe driver, the Keke driver, Keke Napep driver, or the Danfo driver, all of the public transportation, they pay some taxation, whether to their local government council, but where the remittitions of this, where is it going to? So the reforms that we're seeing, does it do anything to address overtaxation, or is it a case of transparency and accountability?
Okay, so I thank you for that question. So I think it does both, or it potentially would do both. Now, the first one is, if you recall, there are issues Nigerian businesses have been grappling with. Okay, in different states, what are the different taxes I have to pay? There's a lot of ambiguities around, taxes, no clarity. So it's difficult for businesses within and without to want to come into the Nigerian economy to invest, because there's a plethora of different taxes you're paying. You can't even sit down and ascertain the profitability of your venture. So this bill intends to address that and provide some level of transparency and clarity with respect to that. And this signals basically, it incentivizes FDI inflows into the economy. So that is one aspect. So it addresses the issue of multiple taxation, and a plethora of other different taxes. In terms of I think you mentioned please can you help me with that again? I think I've missed the second point. So it addresses accountability and transparency.
Right. Yeah. But also the overtaxation at the local council. At the local council level.
Yes, so overtaxation. Oh, okay, fine. So for overtaxation, I want to believe, yes, it addresses it. Now, the reason is, I will take an example in the city in which I live. So you have, certain level of taxes enforced by the state, and you discover that there's a duplicity of that same level of taxes enforced by the local councils. So for the Korope on the road or the bus driver on the road, I mean, that's a pain point that needs to be addressed. So this policy, that's why I keep going back to effective implementation. So if the policy is effectively, and efficiently implemented, what that means is that all those layers of multiple, overtaxation will go away, especially for these vulnerable groups. What it means is that they will be potentially exempted from these taxes.
All right.
So what that means is that they have more disposable income,
Right.
To better their lives.
Yeah, because when we see the Agberos, again, we're not supposed to use the street urchins or those in uniforms who are supposedly Agberos collecting tax, and you're saying they're paying to local government chairman or local council. At the end of the day, where does that money go to? I think there was a report done by SBM Intelligence that was saying that the money that they accrue on just taxing the public transportation road users alone or drivers goes as high as billions of naira each year. And that's just wild when you think about where that money is going to. But away from that, let's talk about, how they are trying to widen the tax bracket by including digital business more squarely into the tax net. I beg your pardon, that's widening the tax net. Do you think that in any way it's going to stifle digital spur innovation or sort of stifle it as well? Because how is that going to work when you're trying to bring in more digital businesses under the tax net?
Okay, so the expected benefits from that is, it is two ways. Number one, there's a potential, issue around transfer pricing. So what I mean by that is, for the development levy, the 4% development levy, for, like you mentioned, regulated sectors like the telecoms, for instance. Obviously, the firm or the business or the company, the telecoms company, would obviously pass that across to the final consumer. So in the short term, we're expected to have some inflationary pressure around that. Now, the government intervention, it's very key to show up investment in, tech-related, investment. They can, I'm sure they have tax reliefs for them, especially for the ones that falls into the already mentioned criteria for micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises, which is obviously the assets, companies with assets valued at 250 million naira, as well as the annual turnover of about 200 million naira. So the policy has actually created some level of buffer. I think the people that designed, or the brains behind the policy, they sage all this scenario, and I think it is a good one. It shouldn't stifle businesses, especially small and medium-scale businesses. Rather, it would encourage them to grow. Once you hit that threshold and you are above the threshold, obviously you're no longer considered, in the eyes of this reform, you're no longer considered as a micro, small, and medium-scale.
I see. Makes perfect sense.
It's very interesting, this new tax reforms, the fact that it focuses on where the money is coming in lately, looking at the digital platforms and the amount of money that people who are engaged in these platforms are raking in. But to tag on to Judith's question, is it going to stifle this economy, this sector? That's a very critical thing to look at, because it's mostly run by the youth. And if the youth think or feel that they are coming under some pressures, they might react. So how exactly does this, is this cushioned when it comes to the digital innovative society or sector?
Okay, thank you. If you recall, you mentioned in your opening remarks that, the issue around the VAT, 7.5% VAT, and the reliefs around small and medium scale enterprises, which is actually the engine room of growth, driven by actually the youth. Because if you look at the trend over the years, basically we have youth driving, the digital transformation of the economy. So this bill has been able to create incentives in terms of input tax. So, for instance, if you're creating a service and you paid input tax, right? You're expected to recover that input tax. It doesn't eventually go into your cost. And so that counts for an incentive. These businesses are exempted. So the Nigerian youth shouldn't be wary that this tax reform is going to drive them out of business. I think they should take advantage of it and run with it, because it is here for them. It's here to expand ingenuity and creativity of the youth.
Well, it's in the mechanism of retrieving these monies that are supposed not to be taxed. From what we've experienced, business owners, especially here in Lagos. So we're hoping that this policy also puts in the mechanism to help business owners, small business owners in the digital sector, retrieve these monies back after they spent them in production cost. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Timi Ikidi, for being with us this morning to discuss taxes, which is not exactly the most exciting topic, but I guess it shapes everything in Nigeria, so it is absolutely important. Thank you once again.